This is Scandia Lutheran Church in Armena, Alberta. My name is Megan and I am a member of this church. I come here with my family to attend worship services, Sunday school, and lots of special events. I like coming to Scandia to be with all of these people. We sing and pray and have communion together and learn about God's love. See that man in the long white robe? That's Pastor Jensen. Some of the little kids thought that he was God, but he's not. He's a really nice pastor, and I like going up to the front to hear the children's story. Pastor Jensen is pretty old, but he's not even half as old as Scandia Lutheran Church. Scandia is going to be 100 years old on October 26, 2001. This building isn't that old though, but my dad says that a church is more than a building. It is the people that make a church. When the first Norwegians settled here, they didn't have a church building. They asked Pastor Bursvend Anderson from Bardo to lead worship services in their homes. They couldn't have a service every week though, because it was a long way for the pastor to come by horse and buggy or horse and sleigh, and he had lots of communities to visit. The first Lutheran service in this area was held at Thor Gruey's log house in 1895. In 1898, the Thornton Schultz School was built and services were held there because it could hold more people than a house could. On October 26, 1901, 9 families decided to join together to start a church. They adopted the name that the congregation had already been using for 3 years. It was Scandia. The charter members were the families of Thor Gruey, John Moe, Ole Movald, Gilbert Hendrickson, Halston Lumnes, Jacob Lundy, John Broen, Christopher Kelstad, and Martin Steen. The government had already set aside 3 acres on a hill for a burial ground for the community, so the settlers decided to build their church just south of the cemetery. This cemetery is straight west of where Armena is now, and it has about 50 people buried in it. I can't believe all the children that have graves here. If only they had had the medicine that we have today. Anyway, the first Scandia Church building was started here in 1904 and finished in 1905. Cornelius Gruey was the carpenter, and lots of volunteers from the congregation gave their time to help him. It looks like the men spent their time working on the church rather than shaving, because most of them sure had long beards. 3 years later, the congregation decided to move the building to a new location north of Armena so that it would be closer to where more of the members lived. Here, the church was made 10 feet longer and a steeple was built. In 1927, a basement was added. Another cemetery was also started at this new location. It is the same cemetery that we use today. On April 30th, 1955, the church caught on fire, probably from an electrical short in the new heater. Ivan Lysing and George Lysing lived the closest and were the first ones there. Somehow, they managed to get the heavy piano out of the church and down the steps all by themselves. The news had spread quickly down the telephone lines and people rushed over to help. They were able to get the pulpit, organ, and the new pews, which were bolted to the floor, out of the burning building. The pews that they ripped up are the same ones we sit on today. They also saved the baptismal font, which now marks the place where the church used to stand. The fire totally destroyed the building, but not the church, because the church is made out of people. Remember? Scandia decided to build its new church building in Armena near the parsonage. Pastor Rude and his family were the first people to live in it. The parsonage belonged to the Armena parish, which was made up of 3 neighboring congregations of Scandia, St. Joseph and Bethlehem. They had joined together to become a parish in 1937. We are still in the Armena parish with St. Joseph Church today. Pastor Jensen doesn't live in the same house that Pastor Rude did because the parish decided to sell the old parsonage and build a new one in 1954. But Pastor Rude and Pastor Jensen have one thing in common. Both of them have to scoop water out of their basements. After the church burned down, a building committee was formed, and these men traveled all over the countryside looking at churches and getting ideas for the new building. The new church was built mostly by volunteers, and it only took them 9 months to finish it. On August 5th, 1956, a dedication service was held for the new church. We have the same church building today, but in 1991, a new addition provided an upstairs bathroom, office, kitchenette, bigger foyer, and more rooms in the basement. A cross was also placed on top of the church with a light so that people could see it at night. In 1996, the old and the new parts were covered with vinyl siding so that it looked like one whole building. Stained glass windows have added great beauty to the building. There are lots of different groups that are part of Scandia. My mom goes to ELW, which stands for Evangelical Lutheran Women, but I guess at first it was called Ladies' Aid. The Scandia Ladies' Aid was organized in 1900, a year ahead of the church itself. We already had a 100th birthday party for the ELW last year. In the early years, the ladies would get together to spin, card wool, knit, and make quilts. They would also study the Bible, pray, and have lunch. They would sell their items and use the money to help support the church and mission work. The women would get to the meetings however they were able. These life members must have all done their shopping on the same page of the Eaton's catalog. Other names for the Ladies' Aid were the WMF, the LCW, and the ELCW. For a long time now, women have met in circles for Bible study. ELW serves the church in many ways. The men took longer than the ladies to get organized. It wasn't until 1944 that the men started the Men's Club, which then became the Armena Lutheran Brotherhood. They got together to study the Bible, and they also started the Boys Club. The Boys Club soon became the first Armena Boy Scout troop in 1947. The Boy Scouts kept going until 1956, and the Brotherhood met until 1972. I wish I would have been living in 1911 so that I could have joined the Sunshine Club. The best part of this group was that it was for girls only. The worst part was that you had to do crocheting, embroidery, and knitting. This club also included the girls from the Swedish Freedom Congregation. In 1940, the Sunshine Club became the LDR, or Lutheran Daughters of Reformation. They supported missions and were active until the late 1950s. The first youth group was formed in 1909 and was called the Northern Lights Young People's Society. By 1938, the name was changed to the Scandia Lutheran League. They would meet with other Lutheran leagues for conventions, kind of like our youth gatherings of today. Just like then, our Scandia youth group is involved in worthwhile projects, devotions, fun, and fellowship. You know, I think the Scandia Sunday School is the only group that has lasted for 100 years without changing its name. Children first met in the homes of pioneers, then in Thornton's Shoal School, and then in the actual church building. I would have had trouble going to Sunday school in the early years because my Norwegian isn't so good. Look at all those kids in Sunday school in 1950. Just think about how many Sunday school teachers there have been in 100 years. We still have wonderful teachers today teaching us about Jesus. Music is important in every church, and Scandia has enjoyed lots of it. There have been choirs and other singing groups, organists and other instrumentalists, all helping us to sing praises to God. We have also been blessed with 19 wonderful pastors over the last century. Their leadership has helped us to grow in our faith. Each one of these pastors has shared his own special gifts with our congregation.
Through age of ox and plow and steam, through new invention and machine, when life's sad patterns fall awry, when this world's folly prompts a cry, O Lord, what now your people pray? Listen, children, hear me say, recall my promise, rest assured, it is as stands in sacred word. My grace is sufficient for thee. My grace is sufficient for thee. When we do wrong and from thee stray, eat bitter fruits along life's way, entangled in sin and cannot rise, we stand condemned in others' eyes. When we are lost in need of light, shine strongly, Lord, through a dark night. Recall my promise, rest assured, it is as stands in sacred word. My grace is sufficient for thee. My grace is sufficient for thee. Thy blood and body we receive, holy promises we believe, redeemed, restored with joy in heart, empowered by love we depart. Word and spirit our surest guide, till in paradise we abide. stands in sacred word. Thy grace is sufficient for thee. Thy grace is sufficient for thee. When on a distant shore we stand, frightened pilgrims in a foreign land, uncertain of what lies ahead, when age and illness brings us dread. One Lord, one God, one truth alone, we build on thee a cornerstone. Recall my promise, rest assured, it is that stands in sacred word. Thy grace is sufficient for thee. Thy grace is sufficient for thee.
These pastors have baptized, confirmed, and married hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. So you can see that many things have changed at Scandia over the last 100 years. But you can also see that not that much has changed either. We still get together to study, worship, sing, pray, and have coffee. And even if this building were to collapse, we would still have Scandia, because as you know, it is the people that make a church.
Go in peace, serve the Lord.
Thanks be to God.